In today's tutorial you're going to learn the garden flower shawl just like so. This is an amazing pattern and let's get started right now. Welcome back to the Crochet Crowd as well as Yarnspirations.com. I'm your host Mikey. Today we're going to be experiencing two parts in this video series. This is part one and I'm going to be back with you in a couple weeks when we go to move on to part two. In part number one we're going to experience the flower itself. You will notice that she is holding all these little flowers that are joining together just like this. And what's going to be happening today in part one is that I'm going to teach you how to make the flower motif. You need to make 39 of these. Now you have not seen this yarn before. This is called Bernat Dimensions. It's a brand new yarn. It will be available in stores near you very soon. This is the spring of 2015 and stores are now starting to stock up with this, and it will be available on Yarnspirations.com as well in the future. So you have to keep your eyes open for it. The Bernat Dimensions, basically you can see here that it has many different thicknesses and there is a color transition that is kind of slow. So you can see that there's large sections of the same color and then it suddenly changes to a new color, which makes it very artistic. So today I'm going to be teaching you how to do the flower motif using a different yarn that's easier to see your stitches, and we're going to be examining this pattern more carefully. So in examining the pattern, it's called the Garden Flower Shawl. I'll provide a link in the more information of this video and being able to get this free pattern. You'll notice that there is actually no crochet hook size mentioned within this pattern. So what I just basically did, that it is calling for Caron Simply Soft. Just look at the yarn ball and you can determine the size of hook that you want to do. If you want more lacy, just increase your hook. So when you turn the page and you can actually see that they are changing colors. I used the Bernat Dimensions because it basically was changing color on its own. So when I go to turn it over, the instructions are really quite simple. There is one motif just like so, and it's actually really quick. It only takes a few minutes to be able to make one of these. Then you have the actual joining itself, but you need to actually get everything done first. So there's 39 of these motifs, and basically if you just follow the arrow you're gonna start off in the corner up here and basically just jump around and make the final edge around each one of these, and as you're doing it you will be joining it to a neighbor. So all 39 have to be done. So in today's part one I'm going to show you how to make these motifs just like so. And again I encourage you to change your colors anywhere that you want to today. Again there is a diagram here to be able to follow if you're unsure about the written instructions as well. I love diagrams as you can tell. So let's begin our pattern. Today I'm using Bernat Super Value in order to demonstrate the stitch. The yarn is pretty easy to follow along, and I'm using a size 6mm size J crochet hook today. Let's start off with a slip knot. Remember that it never counts as one. We are going to then simply just chain 6. So just making sure you don't ever start this as one. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. And then simply just join it to the beginning chain to form the center ring of your motif. Now you'll want to make sure that the chain is actually relatively loose. You don't want any really tight stitches here because you have the jammed 24 single crochets all into the center, and those that are experienced with crochet know that that's a big deal. So let's begin the next part. Let's begin round number one. We're simply just going to chain 1 and then just single crochet inside the center ring for 24 times. So we're just gonna start off and just single crochet. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10, 11 and 12. Now we have to get a total of 24, but I've gone all the way around. So because you're going around the ring you could just simply just yank on it and just slide all these stitches down. Okay, it's gonna make it nice and tight in the center. So we were finishing on 12. So we got 13, 14, 15, 16 and 17, and I'm gonna slide it again. So that was 17, and then 18, 19, 20, 21, slide again, 22, 23 and 24. So I'm using a different size crochet hook versus what I did with the Bernat dimensions, and basically I just followed the yarn ball as far as the information that is provided in order to get the same size crochet hook as well. So let's begin to do the next process. In order to finish this off, we have 24 in here. We're just gonna join it to the beginning for a slip stitch to finalize off round number 1. So let's move on to round number 2. In round number 2 I had a hard time right in the very beginning in the first few rounds to be able to understand what is actually going on here, and it was just a visualization thing. So what I want you to really pay attention to the most is that you will notice that these stitches here, see how this chaining of 5 and then goes over and then down, see how it's forming a V? Well, basically there's 8 petals around this motif, and if you look at, see there's a V there, a V there, a V there, and be there. So I was getting confused when they start looking like they're straight parallel to each other, but just visualize this as 8 V shapes as going all the way around, and I'll explain a little bit more of that in just a moment. So to begin this round we're just gonna simply chain 5. So 1, 2, 3, there's your double crochet there, and then 4 and 5 is the chain of the actual petal itself. We're gonna come into the very next stitch and we are just gonna double crochet, and this is kind of the V shape that I was just talking about. So in between, so this is a V shape, so we're gonna do another V shape over here, but in order to get there first we have to chain 1, skip 1 stitch, and then just double crochet into the next like so, and then chain 2. So 1 and 2, and then come into the very next stitch to double crochet. So these V-stitch looking items basically have a chain 2 over the top of them, and this is kind of what they look like. So there's a chain 1 in between the V shapes. So let's begin again. So we're just going to chain 1 because we're in between the V shape. We're gonna skip 1 stitch and then double crochet into the next, and then chain 2, 1 and 2, and then coming into the next one for a double crochet. Okay, chain 1. So we're gonna, so that we're in between the V stitches now, so we skip 1 and go to the second over for a double crochet, chain 2, and then coming into the very next stitch for a double crochet. So in these V stitches here you will notice that you come into 1 stitch, you chain your 2, and then you come into 1 right beside it. The ones in between, so there's, this is the space in between the V stitch looking item. There is gonna be 1 skip stitch there. So let's begin again. So we just chain 1, skipping 1 stitch, double crochet there, and then chain 2, and then coming into the very next stitch for finishing off that V stitch. And you're gonna continue to do that all the way around. We're almost there, so I might as well just keep going. So just chain 1, skip the next stitch, chain 2, and then go into the next stitch, chain 1, skip the next stitch, okay, chain 2 because you're doing a V stitch, okay, chain 1, skip 1 stitch, okay, chain 2, and then come into the next stitch, and I'm almost all the way around. I can almost see it here. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to count these V stitches. So count this as together. So go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, and that's right. So in order to join them together you gotta chain 1 first and then join to the 3rd stitch up from the base with the slip stitch, just like so. So this is what it looks like at this point, and let's move along to your next round. To begin the next round it's really quite simple. We just have to actually slip stitch into this into the gapping space here. This is the chain 2 gap space. Just slip stitch before you begin. And now you're in the space, and now we're ready to go. So we're gonna chain 2 only. This counts as a half double crochet, and then we're gonna half double crochet one more time. So in actual fact you have 2 half double crochets there, and then you're going to chain 2 and then into the same space half double crochet 2 more times. So you're creating the flower petals the starting of them at least. So this is the next V-stitch here. You can see how they're kind of really close together. You can see that there's a space here. So in this space between the V-stitches you're just going to do 1 single crochet and then begin again the repeat pattern. So this is in the V-stitch, so you're gonna put 2 half double crochets, chain 2 and 2 half double crochets all within the same space. Okay, so the next space here is just in between the 2 V's, just 1 single crochet, and then coming into the next space, what is it, half double crochet for 2 times, chain 2 and then half double crochet 2 times. So you want to continue that same pattern going all the way around, so I'll leave that to you, and when we come back we'll experience the 4th round, which is the final round of finishing off these motifs before you actually start joining them together, which will be part 2. I'm coming up all the way back around, and remember I still have to do my single crochet into the final space there before just joining it to the top of the chain 2 that we started with. And so you should be able to count 8 different kind of petals. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. So if you have any more than 8 something is wrong, any less than 8 something is wrong again. So let's begin the final round. Again, another very easy round coming up. So the first thing we need to do in round number 4 is that we need to slip stitch ourselves to the chain 2 space over here. So we just have to go along the top of the stitches and just slip stitch ourselves over to that space like that. So now I'm in that space and ready to go. So we're going to begin by chaining 3, which counts as a double crochet, and we want to double crochet 3 or 2 more times into the same space. Okay, so there will be a total of 3 double crochets because that chaining of 3 counts as one of them, and then we're just going to simply chain 1 and then 3 double crochets back into the same space. So this is making the flower petal even more bigger. So basically the flower petal consists of 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets. So the most trickiest part is right here in between. So this is, see how this is the space coming up? Well, here is the single crochet. So what you want to just do is that you want to come in this side of it. It's in the gapping space of this side of the single crochet for a single crochet, and come into the other side of the single crochet for another single crochet. So basically you've got a single crochet sitting on this side of the space and this one sitting on this side, and then we immediately start the petals again. So the petals are 3 double crochet, and I'll show you that space area one more time. Okay, so we've got 3 double crochet, chain 1 and 3 double crochet. Just like that. So we've come in and we're looking for the space. You can see how they're kind of in parallel to each other, so those are the spaces in between the V stitches. So we just look where the single crochet is, and we come on the one side for a single crochet, and we jump on the other side for another single crochet, and then begin again. So this is how you would go all the way around. So continue to do the same pattern all the way around and meet you back up. We'll fasten off, and this will conclude part number 1 of a 2-part series of how to do the garden flower shawl. When you get all the way back around, don't forget you still have to go into those single spaces in the space on the single and on the other side of that single, just like so, and this time you have to just join it to the top at the beginning, chain 3, and this concludes on how to do the motif. Just fasten this off really nicely, get it all prepared. You need to do 39 of these for the garden shawl, and when we come back in a few weeks I will be going along in the pattern to showing you how to attach to the neighbor. So you will notice at this point, look how big this is compared to the other one that I had done. Just like so, there is a huge difference. Change the hook, change the yarn, you have a different project, and you know, the bigger the flower, the more faster a project would go anyway. But you know, the creativity is up to you. Change the colors as often as you want, and this becomes a really neat idea. So on behalf of Yarnspirations.com as well as the Crochet Crowd, thank you for joining me today, and until next time, have a fabulous day, and we'll see you on Facebook. Bye bye.